The modern building blocks of the Democratic Party are at war with progress.
You wrote a really interesting piece for Reuters recently on Uber and some of the technological advances coming out of the Silicon Valley and the challenges they're facing. What was the premise of your article, and what are you seeing?
Well, conservatives and Republicans feel they don't do well in cities. And there's some real opportunities here because you have disruptive technologies, and I include in that things like Uber, Airbnb, Lyft, but also the school choice efforts, where kids now in Louisiana, in Indiana, in Arizona have $5,000 vouchers that go anywhere with them. And the Democrats are required to be for the labor unions that like the status quo, the regulated industries and unionized industries like public education, and they can't be for the new and better. And in Silicon Valley, in other cities, you see an entire group of people who hate trial lawyers and the damage they do to new businesses, who don't like labor unions with all of the make work rules, and who don't like government-run mandated bureaucracies that keep out new entrants because that's them and that's the future. So the modern building blocks of the Democratic Party are at war with progress.
So do you see this as an opportunity for the modern conservative movement to be maybe the party of technology?
Oh, absolutely. And one of the great things about Uber, I think it's a model, is they go in, set up shop, don't knock on the door of the regulator and say, can we come in pretty please, in which case they'd get the list of things you have to do to not be you anymore. Become just like the regulated taxis that you're trying to compete with. But rather, they show up and they start being there. In DC, they already had a clientele. They created a constituency. I mean, this is what liberty does. You create a constituency for more liberty and to protect liberty. The old guard stands up and says, we're against choice and freedom. And the Republican Party ought to be, we're with you. Okay? We stand with people that are trying to do new and different and better, whether it's school choice, parental choice and education, or Uber, Airbnb. All of the internet sales, the old unionized retailers don't like internet sales. They would prefer to tax their competitors and slow them down. And so I think the Republicans are in a position, and the Democrats aren't. They can't do this because they can't cross the union bosses and they can't cross the trial lawyers.
Their core constituencies. Do you think Republicans actually get this, though? Or you see, there was a Republican Party chairman, former party chairman in California, who basically wrote an article that said that California Republicans should get over the tech industry and get over the Silicon Valley because they're never going to be with Republicans. Are you seeing momentum, or are Republicans kind of complacent?
Well, Republicans understand they can and should do better in cities. There's a frustration at not being able to, which may have come out in Sean Steele's comments, which surprised me because I always thought of him as brighter and more forward-looking than that. But sometimes people get frustrated because something hasn't worked yet. It's true, we haven't worked as well enough with the high-tech community. Part of it's showing up. When I go to Silicon Valley and meet with tech groups and so on, they comment that they don't see Republican congressmen and senators. They would love to spend more time with Rand Paul. Matter of fact, one time I was out there, it was a week after I think Rand Paul had gotten a standing ovation up at Berkeley. So the message of civil liberties, of free enterprise, of cutting the capital gains tax, of free trade, and the Democratic Party remains the party of protection. And it's not crazy about free trade because they're, again, wedded to organized labor's status quo. It's show up, be pleasant, remind everybody, and yeah, it's completely doable.